Oh.
It's time!
It's kicking, everybody. We're back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by my friend Tom. Tom, how are you after seeing Israel Adesanya get flatlined by Nasruddin Imavov?
Yeah, no, I actually started rolling the tape a little bit ago when you were talking about, not wanting to see Kamaru Usman get flatlined by Jack Della Maddalena, a fight that fizzled out on UFC 312, which is what we're here to talk about. But speaking of a guy who's, on a kind of a KO streak a little bit, some bad loss streak, not bad losses, but losses nonetheless, 3-fight losing streak, Israel Adesanya getting the knockout from Nasruddin Imavov last weekend. I saw that thing popped into my head about Nasruddin, talking about how to pronounce his name, Nasruddin versus Nasruddin. I don't know. It's a very minor, pronunciation kind of, maybe a vocal inflection, a UR versus an ER in the middle, Suradine. I don't know. Seemed pretty minor to be, trying to get at people to say it right. I don't know. I couldn't hear it. But either way, big win by Michael Venom Page too. Did he effectively end Shower Bullet's career? I mean, I know the doctor said that Shower Bullet can't fight anymore because he's legally blind and can't fight outside of Abu Dhabi. Yeah. But I think the loss to Michael Venom Page maybe didn't help things, to say. What do you think?
I would totally agree, especially considering that Shara Bullet only I'm just going to call him Shara now. He loses the bullet tag. Shara only landed one strike to the head of Michael Venom Page for the entire fight, I believe, at least on paper, according to ESPN. That's nothing. And I think it was a head kick. He was very hesitant the whole fight, throwing leg kicks, MVP, doing his crazy feints as usual. And that really threw off Shara's rhythm, his momentum in the fight. And there were a couple times where he looked afraid to engage because you never know what's going to come right back at you from MVP. And his 1-2 is on point, MVP. He looked really good overall. And, I'm not saying Shara was afraid. I think really what it was more like was like, all right, you're going to engage with him and he's going to hit you back with something. You want to avoid getting hit. Obviously, it's a fight. But it left him extremely hesitant. He was looking for a lot of counter punches and stuff, and they just really weren't there for him. MVP is such a hard guy to hit. We've seen Kevin Holland beat people up, and when Kevin Holland fought MVP, he said he couldn't find him. So very much the same for Shara. I can't remember who. I mean, I'm sure I took Shara in this fight, but I do vaguely remember saying, it might be a tough one, and it was the biggest test of his career. I do think he's probably going to come back better. Shara, I mean, he's making all these excuses about this was hurt, that was hurt, and it's maybe his career is done, but I think he'll come back from this one. I think they'll give him a favorable matchup. He's a fan favorite in that region of the world.
No, I think he literally announced his retirement because I don't think he'd be able to fight in any jurisdiction because of his blindness in his one eye. I think he literally retired.
Hamzat can't fight in anywhere else in the world because he's on watch lists. That was a joke. Don't sue me for defamation, Hamzat Chimaev. But it's speculated that he's part of terrorist organizations and stuff. And I'm not making a rude joke. There is some speculation because he's another guy that can't fight outside of the UAE, or at least hasn't. So, wow, retired 220. Wow, no kidding. Yeah. So, did he post that? I don't know. That's an odd one. Anyways, if you're just listening along, there was a screenshot of Shara Bullet, and it said that after doctor stoppages, or doctor's advice, there might be permanent brain damage, the eye's unusable. Maybe that's why he couldn't find MVP. It's hard to see a guy like that moving around if you only have one eye. Shara Bullet says first UFC loss came in the midst of nightmarish health condition. He said that too. I don't know. It's an odd scenario. He's got a lot of mystique around him, and he's a cool guy. I do like him as a character. I feel like I did see something though. I think I saw his post after the fight. He's very big into the show One Piece, and he talks a lot about pirates from that show. And he said something on his social That he will be returning. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. He posted something about like sometimes the pirate comes to shore, sometimes he doesn't. I don't know if you're able to translate that. Oh, well, don't worry about it. You don't gotta do all that. Oh, you're hiding the screen. All right. So, but yeah, I don't think Shara's done for. He said he's not done for. That's just rumors and speculation. I hope he comes back, and I think they'll give him a favorable matchup his next time around.
Yeah. So, all right, my bad on that.
No, I
But
feel
either
good.
way,
Hey, we clarified that for some people at home. But that is a fun fighter, so I'm glad he's sticking around. And then one other I want to touch on from last week was Sergey Pavlovich, who unfortunately just doesn't look like a guy that wants to throw hands anymore. I think that the losses back to back, yeah, like he beat Jairzinho Rosenstrike, but my expectation was that he was going to walk down Biggie Boy and knock him out, and he didn't do that. He just out wrestled him for 3 rounds essentially, and I don't know if that was like a good confidence booster for him, and that's what he wanted to do, just to get back in the win column. Like, okay, let me be smart and tactical and game him a little bit, or if he's afraid to throw hands because Tom Aspinall and Volkov broke him. Look at that meaty man, Jesus Christ. But yeah, it's kind of sad because I'm expecting a Sergey Pavlovich fight to end in a stunning nuclear bomb knockout, and it just wasn't. It was Wrestle City. So, and it wasn't, I mean, yeah, it was impressive. He held him in side control and landed little baby elbows, but it's just not the guy that we've come to expect, and he's certainly losing some stock, in my opinion, unfortunately. Should have knocked out Jairzinho, plenty of opportunities, and just did a lot of like hand fighting and feinting and stuff. And bro, just throw the bomb. Just throw it. Don't be afraid.
everybody wants to see it.
Yeah, just let it go, man. At this point, like you have so many people that well, not so many, but you have these couple top guys that are top heavyweights, and you need to get back in the win column, sure, to get back into title contention. But in order to get into title contention, you also have to be somebody that the fans care about and want to see fight for a title. And at heavyweight, they could just keep throwing in like big dudes that throw bombs and have whoever the heavyweight champ is at that point fight once a year against whoever the next name is. And if Sergey wants to ever fight for a belt again, because he did fight for the interim title, he's got to go out there and throw bombs, bro. That's what got you there. That's what got you to the dance in the first place. So it's a little disappointing to see that from him, but it is what it is. Good win, I guess. I don't know.
It was a fairly decent card. You know what I mean? I thought it was interesting. Have it at a, early in the morning. The UFC had to know it wasn't going to do too well in terms of numbers, but interesting enough. And I'm interested to get into UFC 312. A lot of interesting bouts on this one. We're getting into the heat of the UFC. Before we do that, just, want to remind everybody, like, comment, subscribe. We do appreciate, every like that we get on the video. We don't get all that many, but we do get, upwards of 30, 40, 50 viewers sometimes. So, hey, go ahead and throw us a like, throw us a bone. Really appreciate it. But with that said, let's get into the prelim notables.
Why don't you kick us off with this one?
Young Sung Park taking on Namajagar. I'm not even going to say this right. We'll go with Art of Knockout. Too many syllables, too many letters, too many consonants for me to say without rehearsing for hours beforehand, and I'm just not going to do that. But he is 8-1, 4-1 off of his last 5. Most recent fight, he is coming off a loss here for the Art of the Knockout. That loss was in his UFC debut to Carlos Hernandez via split decision. Not a terrible loss, especially on your debut. We know him from Road to the UFC. He went 3-0 out there, or 2-0 out there. Taking on Young Sung Park, Peace of Mind, minus 280 favorite, 9-0, 5-0 over his last 5 wins in the UFC. He's got 2 of them, and then another 2 on Road to the UFC. So these are guys that, if you watch that series, it's kind of like the APAC, Asia Pacific region version of Ultimate Fighter. And I'm going with Young Sung Park in this one. I think he's a little bit more dynamic. He's a little bit older, means he's closer to his prime. I think he might have a little bit, they have the same amount of fighting history, but I think he has a little bit more MMA experience when it comes to about the length of time that he's competing. And I just like the fact that he's 9-0. His competition is a little bit stiffer, and he's gotten it done in a variety of ways. We talk about knockouts, submission. I think he's a more well-rounded fighter. So I think he's going to go out there and get this one done over the Mongolian fighter that I cannot pronounce his name. But that's my thought on this fight. You have anything, or you have some prelim notables that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on the Young Sung Park pick. One thing that really, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful to anybody in any way, but I didn't really know Mongolia was still a country, bro. I thought that like Mongolia went out with Genghis Khan. So I guess
think Shavkat is from Mongolia.
Yeah, he is actually. Well, yeah.
Respect.
So Shavkat is a descendant of Genghis Khan too. You can be sure of that. The way that guy looks and fights, he's a savage. Let's see, what do we got going up the card? Oh yeah, that Rongju fight. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is going to be a really good one. And one I'm actually not even going to pick, but this is a prelim notable fight that you're going to want to make sure that you are in front of your TV to watch. You have 25-6 Rongju, the kickboxer extraordinaire, taking on Cody Steele 7-0. Rongju had actually maybe not so much kickboxing. Looking back at the submission here on the road to the UFC, a lot of road to UFC guys here, a lot of success in that kind of, I don't know if you call it promotion, but on that show. I think it's going to be a great fight. You got a Chinese taking on the United States, indicative of maybe global politics a little bit. It's always going to be a good rivalry. Cody Steele going out to where is this taking place actually?
Australia.
UFC 312. Oh, Australia. So Cody Steele maybe heading out there or ahead of time, get adjusted to maybe not anything that has to do with altitude, but just being on a different time zone, fighting at a different time. Some guys will train, and fight at the relative time zone of where they're going to fight wherever they're from. So like getting up in the middle of the night to train so your body's ready at that time of day. I like Cody Steele in this one, even though he's making the distance here. Rongju, 25-6. Actually, no, I think he was a kickboxer. I think he does have like 100 kickboxing fights, and it's crazy that he's only 24 years old, 25 years old. I could be getting that wrong, but who cares? I'm fairly confident that he's strong in a bunch of different areas. He's very well experienced, but when it comes to the UFC, I think 25-6 at only 25 years old, you have a lot of experience in the octagon, but not that much against high-level competition. And I think Cody Steele is far stronger. He's a little bit more developed in his MMA lifestyle, even though he's only 7-0. It's going to be a hard one because I feel like they're fairly evenly matched. Both guys have strong, advantages and disadvantages. That's going to make this a really, really interesting fight. -240 is the line. But I for something's telling me that Rongju coming off a loss here inside of the UFC after some of the good stuff we've seen from him on road to the UFC. I just have an indication. I think there's going to be a really good fight that's worth watching. I think it's a little bit closer than what the line would have you say here, although Tapology doesn't agree with me, but I would actually say +195 on Rongju seems like a little bit better value coming back if you're going to bet based on value. But ultimately, there's a fight that I just can't wait to watch.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Rongju. I like the guy a lot. I'm also very excited for the next fight because of the cornermen for it more than anything. And you might recognize one of the names, Alexandre Topuria, the brother of Ilya Topuria, and then Cody Thickness. And I will respect your rule. I tend to follow it that only one sibling in the UFC can be great and the other has to be subpar. And this is one of those cases. I've seen a lot of Alexander Topuria's old fights. And he hasn't looked particularly great, nor has he fought anybody particularly great. You go back and you look at the records of the fighters that he's fought, and he got knocked out by a guy that was 0-0 in pretty stunning fashion in a promotion called Max Fight. I like Ilya Topuria as a fighter. I don't like him as a person, so don't let this, give you any bias at all. But my bias is affecting this, is what I mean to say. But it's so now you have Ilya in his corner, and then Volkanovski is going to be in Cody Thickness's corner, and I'd like to imagine Volkanovski offers very profound advice, and he's incredible at film study and everything like that. And he's fought at Topuria before. Ilya's brother, who I will now just be referring to him as Ilya's brother, Ilya's brother tends to try to fight like Ilya, throw those heavy hands, but he's not as accurate. He's not as steady on his feet. He tends to throw something heavy, miss big, and it's like almost cartoonish. And I think the Cody Thickness and these Australian guys are going to be very prepared for that. They know what they're looking for in this fight. Volkanovski is supposedly it's going to be announced that he's fighting Ilya again in just a few months. And I could see the UFC using this fight as like promotional material for that. And I think that Volkanovski is going to help Thickness prepare big time. And I'm just not super impressed by Ilya's brother. And at what is he, minus 410? I think that they're really cashing in on name value here. He's not a minus 410 favorite in my opinion. This fight is a lot closer than it should be, and in terms of odds. So give me Thickness at plus, what does that say? Plus 325. Yeah, give me that all day. The value is there. And Ilya's brother is he's not good enough of a fighter to be a minus 410 favorite. And Cody Thickness has fought way better competition. Like, if you don't believe me, go through Ilya's brother's record. Wins against guys that are 1-3, 0-7, like crazy, right? Am I wrong? Like there's some, just very
3, 1-1, 0-0, 7-18. He lost to 0-0, 7-18, 1-9, 3-1, and then he's up against 7-0 Colby Thickness.
Bro, yeah. Oh, Colby, my bad. I've been calling him Cody this whole time. But yeah, I think that it's going to be a way different fight than Vegas is projecting, and they're just expecting people to see Topuria and bet on him for that. And I disagree. I'm going with Thickness. So what do you think, Tom?
No, I like it. I agree with you. Something, unless there's something that we don't know about, I'm going to give it a goog while you talk about Tom Nolan and your favorite Slaviclaus Vyacheslav Borshev. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Vyacheslav Borshev is one of my favorites. I love the little dance he does when he wins. I don't know if he's going to win this fight, honestly. Yeah, so like the Ronju fight before, this is a fight that you have to watch. You're going to want to be in front of your television for this one. I've had some friends tell me that they think that this card is going to stink. Shout out to our friend Joe A, who's been on here in the past, Joe Aliata, who is not a fan of this card, and he thinks it's going to be terrible. Usually the Australia cards deliver. Oh, and also one more thing I want to mention, sidetrack. How disrespectful is it to Australia? You just had Saudi Arabia fight at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to cater to their local fans, and yet Australian fans are going to have to show up at like 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday to watch these fights. It doesn't really make much sense to me. Like, if you're going to do it for one, do it for all. But that's the power of oil money. Anyways, yeah, Vyacheslav Borshev coming in. He's currently training in America out of American Top Team, Team Alpha Male, right, with Uriah Faber. Uriah Faber's his main coach. I believe that's Team Alpha Male. And Tom Nolan, also very, very skilled. He's an Australian local boy. The line is very close. It's going to be a fun fight. Stylistically, both kickboxers, both are willing to throw, both are willing to die. Like when you see the shots that these guys throw at each other, it's going to be really like a modern-day gladiator match. And we've seen Vyacheslav Borshev in some incredible fights. He had that great fight, which he ended up losing against Chase Hooper last time around, or 2 fights ago. Last fight was great. Really great, fun kickboxer, and Tom Nolan is throwing to take your head off. And his record speaks for itself. Both these guys, really solid fighters. 8-1 Tom Nolan. I think that says 9-4 Vyacheslav Borshev. Tom Nolan's loss in the UFC was a big wake-up call for him, too. Like, since then, he's definitely turned it around. I think Tom Nolan is going to win, but it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one. It might even go the distance, too, because of just how good both of these guys are on their feet. I don't think anybody's going to shoot takedowns. I think that this is going to be a really fun one. So, yeah, I almost said give me somebody. Just watch it. Just be in front of your television for this fight. I don't want to pick it, but make sure you're tuning in. That's all I got for that.
I hear you. Was doing some research on this Thickness and Topuria matchup. Topuria was supposed to fight a guy, Haddon, and then Haddon had to withdraw, and I guess we can probably see it over on this page. So you have Thickness stepping in on short notice as a former and I guess current training partner, of Volkanovski since thickness was 18. Apparently, rumor has it, Volkanovski's taking on Topuria at UFC 314 in April. But we're getting to Volkanovski's main sparring partner since the age of 18. Thickness has been alongside the former champ for some of his biggest moments. He had been described by Alexander Volkanovski as, where did he have it? He had it somewhere up here. I don't know. I missed it. Somewhere where he had him. How did I see that a second ago and then it's gone? Well, either way, Volkanovski says speaks highly of him, and I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. But I like thickness on short notice for plus money against the unproven brother of Alexandre Topuria, or brother of Ilia Topuria, named Alexandre Topuria. Geez, kind of struggled to get through that one. What do you say?
Nah, it's all right, man. I'm glad we're on the same page, and I'm glad you did the little bit of digging and the research, because it makes me feel that much more confident. And then next up, we got Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. And I wanted to talk about this one because regardless of who Jack Jenkins was fighting, I'm always excited for a Jack Jenkins fight. He's a plus 190 dog here, but the people at Tapology really like him to win by decision. I like him to win. I love the guy's style. He's another one that, he will beat. First of all, he's beaten the crap out of some people's legs so bad with leg kicks that he's broken many of his pre-UFC opponents' legs. Who was that one fella he fought with the butterfly tattoo? Don Shanis. He made it look silly. His one loss comes to Chepe Mariscal in the UFC as well, and that's okay. That's forgivable. Chepe has shown that he's really moving up quickly in the UFC.
He got hurt, right? Verbal tap out from arm injury.
Yeah, but it was he definitely lost that fight. As far as I remember, it was definitely like a clear Chepe Mariscal win going into that arm injury. I don't know. Listen, I love Jack Jenkins, bro. The guy throws. His combos are crazy. It's leg kick, body strike. He's throwing at your face. Like you have so much to worry about, so much to look at. Oh yeah, he got dropped.
He got thrown. Look, he gets thrown,
right,
and goes to post on his arm, and his forearm snaps.
Yeah, that's insane. I do remember that now. But so I believe up until that point, Chepe was very clearly winning that fight. And shout out to whoever that is breaking it down. That's a good video. Octagon Doctor. I like that. I might have to subscribe to him. But yeah, I mean, I love Jack Jenkins, bro. He's such a fun fighter. And again, plus money, plus 190 dog. Snag it now while it's like that, because I feel like as people start to get wind of this fight and the fight gets closer, you're not going to see a line like that as much for Jack Jenkins anymore. So yeah, give me Jack Jenkins here. What do you think? Oh, let's see.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm looking at plus 180. Staying at plus 190, but all of Tapology is on Jack Jenkins. His most recent win is coming over Herbert Burns by knockout. And we saw there, his one, main loss of late is due to, forearm/elbow snap from maybe what you could say is that it was bad technique. Maybe you could say freak accident. Either way, I like Jack Jenkins. I think he's tough. I think he's durable. Maybe not his right arm, but, tough, durable. I think he's got amazing leg kicks. Like you said, he's a solid striker. I think it's going to be a really good matchup here against Gabriel Santos. I'm intrigued to figure out why Santos is going to be a minus 230 favorite and staying there even on best fight odds. Because everything I'm looking at makes me think that Jack Jenkins would be, prime here to have a good showing. Both of these guys, by the looks of it, are going to be kickboxers, and probably Gabriel Santos has more kickboxing experience, maybe very similar MMA experience. He's probably a better kickboxer than Jack Jenkins. Jack Jenkins a little bit better on the ground, and I guess maybe that's what Vegas is saying. But, out of 1,100 picks here on Tapology, 80% are on Jenkins to win. 80% of those, or 72% of those, are by decision, 27% by knockout. Yeah, give me Jack Jenkins. I think he's got powerful leg kicks. If he can find a way to land them on Gabriel Santos, he's not going to be able to move as much. Santos isn't. But in a kickboxing battle, I guess maybe that's why everything's going to lean Santos. But, hey, it's far more fun to go with the Australian in his backyard. who's more of a fun fighter. And you got to remember, a lot of the Thai fighters, some of them fight and kick very hard, but some of them, not to say that they play, but a lot of their winning is or a lot of their practice is by playing, by touching, and to gain that kind of understanding of fighting. And when you're up against a guy like Jack Jenkins, who's throwing with everything he has, and he's fast, and you have to get out of the way, sometimes, you don't know what it's like until you get punched in the face, in the words of Mike Tyson. So give me Jack Jenkins to kind of punch Gabriel Santos in the mouth a little bit and make this a rough one. It's going to be a good fight either way. A lot of really good fights on the undercard of UFC 312.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm actually, as we're talking about it, I'm getting more and more excited. This card is actually sick. Thank you, Australia, for being a nation of, well, what is it? It's a prison island. It's a British prison colony.
Yeah, right.
They made some tough dudes. Jack Jenkins, it definitely being one of them. I'm so excited for that one. And that's the featured prelim fight leading into the main card. Let's jump into this main card. So first up, we got Francisco Prado versus Jake Matthews, the Celtic kid. And I'm a huge fan of Jake Matthews. He's been in the UFC since he's 18. He's had a lot of fights. He's 20-7. He's now 30 years old. The guy is super, super active. Thank you, Andrew Nance. Appreciate that. He said goats. I don't know if he was talking about us or Jack Jenkins, but either way, thank you. Appreciate it. Jump in the comments. Chat with us. We love chatting with the chat. Jake Matthews, minus 220. Well-deserved. Just a few notable things recently in his career. And I want to talk about his most recent loss, actually, more than anything, and that's to Michael Morales. He's one of the few people in the UFC to take Michael Morales to a decision. He did lose the decision, but Michael Morales is going in there taking everybody's heads off. So that one really spoke to me. It was a smart, tactical fight. Jake Matthews is really good on his feet. His grappling game is sound. He's just an overall great fighter. And I'm hoping now that he's hitting his 30s that maybe he can really hit his athletic prime. We see a lot of UFC fighters start rolling in their 30s, like 30 to 35 range. Francisco Prado is not bad, but a loss on his record that really stands out to me is to Jamie Mullarkey. Jamie Mullarkey is a great, he's great for a lot of reasons. He's never going to be champ. And if you want to be anything in this division, you have to get through Jamie Mullarkey. I'm sorry. You have to get through Jamie Mullarkey. He's got a very hittable chin. He takes a lot of damage, and a lot of guys are able to win by decision against him. And Francisco Prado just did not look great. I like Jake Matthews, man. The tenure is there. The work and his record really speaks for itself. So, yeah, give me Jake Matthews here. I think that we're going to start to see him really hit his stride. This is a guy who's been in the UFC, like I said, since 18. And it's going to be a fun one. I think Jake Matthews gets a very definitive career-defining win here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, it's interesting because if I know we have before looked at like fighter streaks that they seem to go on and patterns that get developed. Francisco Prado, you could see it right there. By his pattern, probably in line for a win. Jake Matthews, by his pattern as of late, probably in line for a loss. I think the quality of opponent for Jake Matthews is just a little bit higher, and the quality of outing we've seen from him as of late. I've really liked what I've seen from him despite those two losses. 2 losses 2 years ago from Matthew Semmelsberger. With one, he kind of turned it around. We saw a brand new version of him against Darius Flowers. We went out there and dominated, and then took the loss to Michael Morales. But like you said, 15-0 Michael Morales. That's a really, really good caliber of opponent. Come back out, looked good against Phil Rowe, getting that decision. Francisco Prado lost to Jamie Mullarkey, who Jamie Mullarkey gets hit a lot. And is not a bad fighter, but like you said, if you want to be upper echelon, you would definitely want to come away with a win over Jamie Mullarkey 2 years ago. Ottoman Alvatar win there looked pretty good, but again, Daniel Zellhuber, I just think the quality of opponent that Prado is not only facing but losing to, it doesn't necessarily hang up with the more recent versions of Jake Matthews. He's been in the UFC a lot longer. Francisco Prado is still a young guy. So I'm going to go with Jake Matthews. He's minus 220. He's going to be, in the hometown favorite. If there is going to go to decision, like the Tapology voters here think, I think he'd have a little bit more of a judge's slant, if that's a thing in Australia. So for those reasons, I think the Jake Matthews minus 220 is a safer bet. Let's go with that.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I really like Jake Matthews. Next up, we got Jimmy Crute. And he is fighting Rodolfo Bellato. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Rodolfo here. Jimmy Crute, as of late, not looking great, dude. He's 1-2 3-1. I had to think about that. Math wasn't really my strong suit. One of those, like the one at the end being a draw with Alonzo Menafield, and then they ran that one back and he got submitted. Prior to that, he got knocked out by Jamal Hill, and then prior to that, he had that wonky leg injury against Anthony Smith where he's like begging to fight. He was begging to hurt Dean while he could barely stand, and his foot was folded up underneath him. Jimmy Crute's tough. He's as tough as they come. And Rodolfo's last win was against Ihor Potieria, and it was in his UFC debut. And like Ihor is just becoming a guy that they want to run out his contract. He's being fed to people like new prospects because he was supposed to lose against, I'll never forget this, against Shogun, who I always bring it up. And then he knocked out Shogun and did like some stupid Fortnite emoji dance or something. And ever since then, the UFC has just been abusing Ihor Potieria. He's a very easy guy to knock out at light heavyweight. If you're going to be somebody someday, again, you have to be able to knock out Ihor Potieria. And unfortunately, at this point, it looks like if you want to be somebody, you have to beat Jimmy Crute. And Rodolfo has a great record. He's 4-1 over his last 5. Fought solid competition outside of the UFC. Fought in the LFA, which is not a slump promotion. A lot of good fighters have come out of the LFA in recent years, or past couple of decades, really. So I'm going to go with Rodolfo Bellato here because I have no confidence in Jimmy Crute. Unfortunately, I like the guy. He's tough as nails. He can take a beating. It's just lately he hasn't really been able to give that beating back. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm going to go with Rodolfo Bellato here. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, and I hate to make this show kind of boring by agreeing with you over and over and over again, but that's the simple reality here is I don't have a lot of confidence in Jimmy Crute. I think his ground game can be lacking at times, though he can get submission wins against guys who have absolutely no ground game. And Rodolfo Bellato, you see it right there, Brazilian. You know he's going to have some sort of jiu-jitsu that he could pull out. He's got a strong kickboxing game, and Jimmy Crute is good at kickboxing, but it's not like he's super technical and he gets out of the way and he avoids damage. He gets hit a lot, and that's some of the reasons why he lost. He got the drop foot against against Anthony Smith, fought through it, ended up taking Anthony Smith down and potentially won that round in some people's eyes, especially when you look at the end of it. So Jimmy Crute, like you said, tough as nails, but I think there's a couple of holes in his game that Rodolfo Bellato is going to be able to exploit. He's on a little bit of a slide here. He's slightly the younger guy. He's going to be kind of in the hometown crowd. So I never want to root a guy like that out. He can go out there. He's got some good power. He can land one on Bellato, get him kind of wobbly and go out there and finish just on pure adrenaline alone. But aside from that, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it, brother. But aside from that, I'm just going to go with Rodolfo Bellato. I think it's a little bit more of the safer bet. I think the ground game, when you look at some of the holes in Jimmy Crute's game, I think it just tends me to believe with Bellato minus 140, and then Tapology almost 90% going Bellato by knockout, or 82% picking him, 90% by knockout. So I like Bellato. Don't know if I would trust, or I'd say, trust the knockout as much as Tapology seems to, but I think Bellato is a little bit more the safer bet. You're kind of looking for the Hail Mary energy play with Jimmy Crute. At plus 120, I don't want to be taking a Hail Mary. So give me the guy who I think stylistically is a little bit better, has aligned better in terms of the matchup game. So that's where I'm at with that. And then moving right up the card, staying on the main card, Justin Tafa finds his way onto main cards. He finds his way into, fights with a fair amount of eyeballs on him, but he's not that good, and it's disappointing to say because he's a guy who's entertaining, but I don't think he doesn't win enough. You know what I mean? You got to go out there if you're going to throw heavy hands and you're going to be the someone who takes damage. You got to be able to take damage. And I just don't see him being able to do that too much. I know he's 7-4, but when I think of him and his brother, I just think of, trading punches and then inevitably not being able to win the exchange at the end. You got the loss. Tafa How's on the make card. Again, he always just finds his way on there. I think, him and his brother, they have that the Shoei company. So I think somehow they maybe have some back deal, some sort of some setup with the UFC, maybe, you don't know. But that being said, in this one, you want to look at Tallison, Teixeira, Shalico. I'm assuming, I don't really know how to pronounce an X, to be honest. I'm speaking only English my entire life, and I don't really know what sound the X makes. So I don't know what it makes in English, let alone Brazilian. So with that being said, 5-0 over his last 5, 7-0 overall. You have some of these wonky promotions, 4-15, 2-1 LFA, 2-1 LFA, 6-1 in the Contender Series. We know that guys sometimes struggle in their first UFC appearance. And 7-4, Justin Tafa. He's got the win over Harry Hunsucker. You, me, and my mother all have wins over Harry Handsucker. Parker Porter probably as well. Austin Lane, unintentional eye poke, no contest there. Then came back out the win over Austin Lane. Lost to Carl Williams, 9-1 in the UFC. I know I just talked a lot of shit about Justin Tafa, but being that it's in Australia, being that he's on the main card, and being that he sometimes can still get wins, his record's not as bad as maybe I perceived it to be. You got another guy who's got a major lack of competition coming into the UFC on a main card from Brazil. Really young guy, 6'7", 6'7", 9-inch reach. Did anybody notice that before me? 6'7", 9-inch reach. Probably has gotten by just on his stature alone here. Look at him. Yeah, you can see how big this guy looks just looking at his picture. Give me Justin Tafa. He's 6 foot. His arm could reach up. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe GFL. That could be another stop for him. But at the end of the day, he's got some UFC caliber competition under his belt, being that it's Harry Hunsucker and Parker Porter. There's just absolutely no reason to believe in the competition that Tallison Teixeira has fought. And then when you find out that he's 6'7", 83-inch reach, this guy's just gigantic. It makes a lot of sense why he's been kind of thrust forward. But I think Justin Tafa is going to go out there, lay the smack it down on the Twin Towers from Brazil. And I think this is the time to bet on Tafa. Plus 130? Sure, give it to me.
Yeah, this is where we're going to diverge in this episode, bro. 6'7". The last time we saw a guy that big, a guy with that bad of cardio, was Robelis Despain, and obviously Despain got taken down in his second fight in the UFC and just abused on the ground. Justin Tafa is not the guy to do that. Justin Tafa would rather throw and bang with you, but this kid's 25 years old. He's thin. He's athletic. Great cardio from what I've seen, and he's huge. So I'm going to take Teixeira here. I think he's going to get the W against Tafa. Tafa's going to burn himself out early, and then it's going to be just a distance game from Teixeira where he's able to pick him apart, and Tafa's not going to be able to close the distance, and he's going to be huffing and puffing, and it's going to be jab, jab, jab. And, yeah, I think that Teixeira gets the win here this week. So that's what I'm rolling with.
By the way, I don't think we've talked about it here. What do we think about GFL?
To put it simply, it's a retirement home.
But I think the structure might have some merit. You know what I mean? Like,
Is-
we talked about this before, like offline, but you can't start a new promotion with absolutely zero names. So you're going to have older names in there, and then maybe through that you can add in some people who are potentially interesting and cause good fights. I'm interested to see how the structure plays out. I think that draft thing was kind of cool, kind of corny. I think some of it was pre-recorded. It could have been cool if it had some actual hype around it, which you're not going to have your first time in. So I don't want to be too harsh there, but hey, I'm interested. I'll see where it goes. I'll play I'll pay about as much attention to that as I do the Tiger Woods golf league too. You know what I mean? It's kind of new stuff that's going on. Got bells and whistles. We don't even know if there's actually going to be fights yet. You know what I mean? I haven't heard anything about when the first event is, but and also the AI on there was kind of nuts.
Yeah, that's so corny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, listen, you have Uriah Faber, Chris Weidman, Holly Holm. The money's got to be there. Otherwise, why else are these people doing that? It's just got to be a massive payday. Somebody's funding it, probably some oil money coming in. That's all it is. It's just another way to make money. Oh, man, I'm excited for this fight. Weili Zhang versus Tatiana Suarez. Yeah, I'm pumped for this one, dude. I am a big Weili Zhang fight. A lot of people don't get excited for women's MMA. I'm one of those people, but I always get excited for a Weili Zhang fight. She's a badass little bitch, that Weili. I love her. I don't know what else I could say except that she's going to win. Tatiana Suarez, sure, she's undefeated, and she's got a Netflix documentary about her, and she's beat good competition over the years. But she's not super active. She took a really long time off, and her most recent win is against Jessica Andrade. I think that this is a case of we have this name. Let's get her in there before she loses and ruins her undefeated record. We have to put her in there against Weili Zhang because Weili Zhang needs somebody new to fight. How many times could you fight the Roses and the well, she's no longer with us, but the Joanna and Jaceks of the world? This is just, it's time, place, and well, it's going to be Weili Zhang's time and place in Australia. She is a bad bitch. Retweet what Andrew Nance said. Yes, absolutely. I love Weili Zhang. I'm surprised that the odds are moving against her, but her striking's on point, her grappling's on point. Yeah, there's not much else to say besides she's so cool, she's tough as nails, and she's a great fighter. So give me Weili Zhang. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just looking at those odds, and it was not what I expected to see. But I am going to stick with Weili. Probably didn't even know it. I think because Tatiana Suarez, like you said, there's a lot of merit to your point where she's 10-0. She's looked very dominant in her more recent fights. I think there's a lot of reason that the UFC would want to kind of promote her and get her to fight the champion now to give credit to not only Weili Zhang, but kind of the division as a whole, that they have, enough competition to make that division competitive and worth watching and worth being on the, co-main of a pay-per-view card. With that being said, I think Tatiana Suarez at 10 fights in her career. She's 34 years old. She does have a grappling background. She did look really good against Jessica Andrade. She did take a year and a half off at 34 years old. So the last time we saw her, she was in her mid 32s. We know women, as you get older, there could be a larger propensity to have a drop off sooner than with men. The same thing would apply with Weili. She is in China, so you know that her life is 100% dedicated to fighting, and she probably has maybe a little bit more. Just, I don't want to say Americans don't have good discipline, but Vivek Ramaswamy said it best when, sometimes Americans just are a little bit too busy on TikTok and other countries and other ethnicities, just know how to get it done and have a little bit better, propensity to be successful than Americans. Not to launch into a political conversation, but I'm not saying that doesn't come into play here. And I think Weili Zhang has proven to be so far above any other fighter when it comes to just overall well-roundedness. And I think with the relative lack of MMA experience for Tatiana Suarez, we have submissions from Weili Zhang, Zhang Weili, whichever way we're supposed to be pronouncing it now. I like her to get it done. And at minus 120, I'd give her at minus 200 odds at the very least. She's been more active. She's fought better competition. She's fought longer. I like Weili Zhang a lot in this fight.
Yeah, all I want from Weili Zhang, is a win this weekend, and then I just want to meet her so she can call me handsome. Like, remember when she called Colby Covington handsome, dude? That was like one of the sweetest, most like wholesome moments at a UFC press conference ever. I love her. She's such a sweetheart. I really hope she gets the win, and I hope that she just keeps winning. Yeah. So main event time. Let's talk about this one. We're running it back. Dricis Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. This is a tough one. Definitely a tough one. That last fight was close. And then Dricus goes out and finishes Adesanya the way that he did, which now at this point doesn't seem so impressive, especially with Adesanya doing all that aura farming that he does, pointing at the ground, trying to be like Max Holloway. And then the whole thing where he's waving off Mark Goddard. It's like, dude, you're trying to be somebody you're not. Relax. But it still was a good win against Adesanya. Nobody had submitted him up to that point. And, the thing is, he couldn't finish Sean Strickland. Du Plessis has finished a lot of people. He couldn't finish Sean. Sean is not necessarily a finisher. He went 5 rounds with Paulo Costa, I believe, or 3 rounds or 5 rounds. He went the distance with Paulo Costa and looked incredible doing it. Beat the brakes off Paulo Costa, but didn't finish him. Sean Strickland is a gamer. A lot of people like to say that all he does is throw the 1-2 and the teep kick, which he does do quite a bit nowadays. But there have been fights. You got to keep in mind who his coach is. His coach is Eric Nixick. Eric Nixick is a great coach. He's the guy that helped develop Francis Ngannou from just power to power plus technique. And they go into each fight with a game plan, Sean Strickland and Eric Nixick. And, for example, you look back at the Nasruddin Imavov fight, and he's throwing more looping punches, lots of head movement because he knows how Nasruddin fights. And I think that he's going to benefit heavily from the first fight against Dricis Du Plessis where, Dricus, he throws stuff from the outside. He throws weird. He throws a lot of looping, strange stuff. So what are you going to do against him? You're going to come right down the pipe, 1-2, teep kick. It makes sense. They're going to do it again. But Sean Strickland's cardio is through the roof. I think that Dricus, just listening to him talk about the last fight and about how he wanted to finish Sean Strickland, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one because the level of aggression is important for Dricus. He could be worn down by the end of the fight. He had that. It's such a tough one on paper. I mean, even like not even just on paper. That first fight was so close, and I like both guys quite a bit. I think Dricus rattled Sean the first time around with some of the comments that he made about his father, and I think that Sean has grown. He's moved past a lot of that, and both of these men have earned each other's respect. Don't be surprised if there's a little bit of shit talking, but I don't think that it's going to be as intense and as personal as the last time around. And so I don't think that Sean is going to be as rattled because, it's Sean Strickland's first time being the guy that's like the victim of the verbal attacks. Usually he's the one dishing it out, and Dricus is very quick with his lines. I think that Sean is going to come into this one mentally sharper, more of a game plan, like more developed game plan. A big thing that won Dricus that last fight was he had a little bit of control time, and that won him a round that was close. I think that you might even see Sean. Well, I don't know. You'll never see Sean Strickland go for a takedown. Maybe in this fight, but I think that Sean Strickland's going to win. I think as good as Dricus is and as good as he looks, I think that Sean Strickland's going to win. I think it's going to set this up for a really sick trilogy. And I think that the two of these guys, maybe the beef gets reignited as the press conference gets closer and everything gets closer to the fight. But I think that this might be the back and forth in the middleweight division for the next couple of years, as championship bouts, because these two guys are two of the best middleweights to exist, and they both got such awkward competitive styles. They're both so different from each other, and yet the last fight was so close, and I think this one's going to be close again. I think it's going to go the distance again, and I think it's going to come down to judging again, and it's really tough to pick, but I'm going to go with the slight dog, Sean Strickland. I love the guy. I really want to see him hold the belt. He needs to be back on the world stage. He needs to be back out of press conferences, making the comments that he makes. The world needs Sean Strickland. So give me Sean Strickland and new. What do you got?
I'm going and still Dricis Du Plessis, even though I think it would be more interesting and I would prefer if Sean Strickland won. I think the world is kind of just a better place when Sean Strickland is champion. He's a lot more entertaining, and Dricus is cool and all, but I just don't see. I love when there's entertaining champions, and I love when champions are characters in their own right. And I feel like Dricus, he was entertaining for a period of time, but he needs like a sparring partner. He needs somebody to go after him. He needs kind of someone to be the bad guy so that he could be justifiably the bad guy because he's inherently a good guy, where Sean Strickland just doesn't give a fuck. And I admire that about him. I think he's a lot more interesting, especially when he's like, oh, I'm going to fuck this guy up. And he goes out there and he just jabs them to death. He's obviously got a great reaction time, and, he's a very strong fighter. He takes as least damage as anyone inside of the UFC. But I think this new deviated septum fixed Dricus is just a new beast. Yes, he went out and he dominated Israel Adesanya, who just got knocked out by Nasruddin Imavov in the second round. But he submitted Israel and he made it look easy. You remember he fought to a split decision with Sean Strickland, but he also had the knockout to Robert Whittaker, the power jab there. So I think Dricus Du Plessis is a guy who is approaching his prime right now. And I think Strickland, I don't remember exactly what it was, but wasn't something up with their fight last time where I think either Strickland was encumbered or maybe Dricus was encumbered. Somebody said something about something, but either way, I think we're going to see a better Dricus here. I think he's going to just have an endless gas tank like we're used to him seeing now, that his breathing is fixed. And I think Sean, we're going to see maybe a very similar version of the first fight, but Dricus knows that he's just got to get in Sean's face. He's got to get Sean moving backwards. It's hard to do that because Sean's always moving forward and always throwing that jab out there. But if anyone could take a bunch of punches, it's Dricus Du Plessis. And I think the wild over the overhanded shots are going to be able to get through to Sean Strickland and just have him pause for a little bit, have him back up a little bit, and have him not be able to, execute his game plan in a way that he's expecting to. I know how much he fights, and that's why I think this is maybe a lot closer than -210 and +170. And in other ways, I think it could be, right on there because Dricus won already. And Sean Strickland hasn't been terribly active. He did have a split decision over Paulo Costa as his only fight between this and last. So he's, maybe been active in the gym, but we haven't seen him as active inside of the UFC octagon as maybe, he had at other times. And Max Holloway always talks about how I know how to fight. I don't have to necessarily have to practice fighting. But that being said, I just feel like the slight edge is with the champion. And not for anything that has to do with geography to where the UFC is occurring. I think it's just Dricis Du Plessis is a slightly more aggressive fighter, even though Sean Strickland's going to throw more punches. Dricus is going to throw with more intent. And, I think the interesting thing is I saw him comment in a podcast or, in an interview or something where he was like, listen, this isn't about, I forget what he said it wasn't about, but what it is about is, are you able to punish somebody and are you, willing to die while you try to kill someone? And I am. And all of them say kind of that cool shit, but, I don't know if he believes it or not, but at the end of the day, he has put it out there on the line that he's willing to put his face in the line of danger to go out there and kill his opponent in the proverbial sense. So for that reason, I'm going with Du Plessis to get this one done. I think there's just a little bit more of that killer instinct when it comes to the game on the feet. And I think he's a little bit more aggressive and he's a little bit more unpredictable, whereas you know what you're going to get from Sean Strickland. I don't think he's going to deviate from the game plan all that much. And with the prior win to Du Plessis and only minus 210, I'm going with Dricus.
Yeah, one more thing I do just want to mention is that the last time that we saw Alex Pereira and Sean Strickland really training together heavily, and Sean really getting coaching up from Alex Pereira was when he fought Israel Adesanya. And maybe that has to do with the familiarity of the opponents. But he went into that fight more prepared than he had ever been for any fight. And basically, I think that a lot of the reason why, Andrew, thank you. Yes, Eric Nixick and Alex Pereira have Sean Strickland ready. That's also my opinion about this fight. Because first of all, Eric Nixick broke down how to beat Israel Adesanya, and now everybody's following that game plan. He basically figured it out, and that's why Sean Strickland was able to land that 1-2, and that's why Nasruddin Imavov was able to land that 1-2. It's one thing to be a ruthless aggression and power like Alex Pereira, and it's another thing to be a tactician in the way that Sean Strickland is. I know it looks funny, those jabs, the teep kicks, and just right up the gut, but I think that Alex Pereira being in Sean Strickland's corner this week, maybe some Shama rubs off on him. So I do think that's going to be a factor as well for him. He doesn't, as far as we know, he doesn't speak English, but the guys train together so much, and Alex has been living in America in Connecticut for so long that there's no way that he hasn't picked up enough English to be able to communicate with Sean Strickland in his corner. As far as we know, he doesn't speak English, but then he did like a Tops or whatever the card company is. He did like a card company commercial where he's speaking clear English to people in the commercial. So yeah, I think that Alex Pereira is probably going to have some useful advice. And something that you have to keep in mind, too, is that if Sean Strickland loses to Dricus Du Plessis this weekend, Alex Pereira is going to go back down to middleweight.
For me, I don't speak English. For me, very difficult. My brother no teach me. Hey, brother.
You're learning very good. He's learning very good. He's doing well.
You speak English for me, teacher, is low.
Listen, it's an act. Listen to how well he was actually speaking very well in the beginning, and then at the end he's like, you teach me, you speak me.
It got worse. Mackenzie Dern effect.
Yeah, he knows English. I'm telling you, Alex Pereira knows enough English to be able to communicate what he's seeing to Sean Strickland. And, bro, look at the fourth round that he had against Khalil Roundtree. Like, if anybody could pick up on trends and what a fighter is doing, it's those two men that are going to be in Sean Strickland's corner. And Dricus Du Plessis is not that complicated. Sure, he's awkward and random with the things that he throws, but he's not a complicated guy. Like, you're going to get those windmill punches. I'm telling you, don't be surprised if Sean Strickland catches him with something similar to how he caught Israel Adesanya, where we're all standing up, jumping out of our seats, like, oh my God, Sean Strickland's going to do it. He's going to knock him out. And then Dricus.
That'd be crazy. Sean Strickland gets a knockout at DPT.
He's not going to knock him out, but I'm just saying that he's going to land that shot that you go, oh my God, he's going to knock him out. And then he just doesn't have the power in his hands to do that. He's going to be up against the cage, like bong, bong, bong again. But I just think that Sean Strickland's going to surprise a lot of people. So I'm so excited for that one, though. I'm so excited for all the media and the press leading up to it. It's going to be so much fun to hear what these two savages have to say about each other and then how they take it out.
Go at it.
Yeah, and then how they take it out on each other in the octagon, it's going to be fucking incredible. I cannot wait. I was just about to say, let's put a bow on this thing. Pick rundown time. Going back to, well, let's see. My first pick, I'm going with Colby Thickness, Alexander Volkanovski's sparring partner, against Ilia Toporia's brother, Alexandre Topuria. I want to say again, I'm taking Colby Thickness. I like that a lot, big dog. And then make sure you're watching the Tom Nolan Vyacheslav Borshev fight. That's a tough one. I'm leaning towards Vyacheslav Borshev. And then I'm taking Jack Jenkins over Gabriel Santos. Main card, I'm going with Jake Matthews over Francisco Prado. Rodolfo Bellato over Jimmy Crute, Tallison Teixeira over Justin Tafa, Weili Zhang over Tatiana Suarez, and Sean Strickland over Dricus Du Plessis. Still knocks. What do you got?
I am going with Hyung Sung Park over the guy he's fighting. Not even going to attempt that. And make sure you are watching that Rungju Cody Steele fight. I feel like that's going to be a really good one. Give me Thickness over Topuria. Give me another one that I'm just guaranteeing is going to be a banger is Tom Nolan and Vyacheslav Borshev, just like you said. Give me Jack Jenkins over Gabriel Santos. And on the main card, we're going Jake Matthews over Francisco Prado, going Bellato over Crute, Tafa surprisingly over Teixeira, going Zhang over Suarez, and going DDP and Still over Sean Strickland. I think we hear and Still twice this weekend. And Still, we're hearing that twice.
How rare is it that we hear and Still twice on the same card, though?
Playing the odds, my friend. I mean, listen, there are two fights where I think Weili Zhang's a little bit more of a lock than DDP is for sure. But
absolutely.
So basically, you're guaranteeing if Weili's a lock, by that mentality, Sean Strickland has to also be a lock. But listen, if I get that main event wrong, I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to be, I'm in the same way that it didn't actually end up happening. But we had, I picked, I think, Sarukian over Islam, or maybe I didn't. But either way, if you picked Sarukian over Islam and you end up being right, that's great. Or no, sorry, rewriting that. I picked Islam over Sarukian, but if Sarukian ended up winning, I'm not going to be complaining about it because I'd love to see Islam not as the champion. But nevertheless, similar situation here. I would love to see Sean as the champion. So if I hedge myself, if I fade myself, I'm going to be a happy guy on Saturday night.
Yo, one thing I do want to say about Islam, bro, the guy's grown on me. Islam has grown on me 1,000%. I'm now an Islam fan. I've been watching a lot of the videos from when they did the VR stuff back when during like COVID and shit like that, when it was Max Holloway, Habib, Islam, and DC. And he had one of the funniest fucking lines, dude. DC did a shoey, and
oh my God.
Islam is like, next time you go to Starbucks, give them shoe and say cappuccino, please. Like, bro, he's so funny, dude. And then he also, I found out he had a cat Instagram, and I have a cat as well. And I never was a cat guy. Now I love my cat. And Islam apparently had a beautiful Bengal cat, which that was my first cat too. And the cat recently passed, and Islam had a Instagram dedicated to the cat. So when the cat passed, he deleted it. And anyways, I'm becoming more and more of an Islam fan as time goes on. He's very funny. He's very charismatic. He's way funnier than Habib. He's not as serious, but he is very serious in the octagon as well. And he's kind of growing on me, man. I gotta say. Were you just looking for those clips of the VR stuff?
I'm trying to find it. Daniel Cormier, Shuey, Makachev.
Yeah. If you look up cappuccino, it might come up. It's definitely on Twitter, bro. But yeah, you say put cappuccino. That shit cracks me up, bro. While you're looking for that, I just want to remind everybody, please like, comment, subscribe. I want to say a special shout out to Andrew. For
give them your shoes and say cappuccino.
Yo, and then
brother, next time when you go Starbucks, just give them your shoes and say cappuccino.
The lead up to that was also very funny because they showed the video of DC drinking out of his shoe, and then Khabib is like, if you take Islam's shoe and drink from it, it tastes too salty. Like the two of them are actually The two of them are actually very funny together. But yeah, I just want to say shout out to Andrew commenting throughout the whole video. We love when people jump in the chat with us. So yeah, please jump in the chat. We love chatting back with you. Hoping to improve my record this week. We're both sitting about the same, and we diverted a little bit. So let's see how this week goes. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are as well, Tom.
Hell yeah. Can't wait for UFC season to really ramp up.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.